This video is about my first psychic experience. I didn't even really realize what had happened. I was 13, 14, I think turning 14, and I was going to a born-again Christian church at the time. I had a substance abuse parent who I moved out of at the age of 8 and moved into my aunt and uncle's house, who were a part of this Pentecostal church. So I started going and everything. I'd gone for many years. So this is fast forward. I'm now a preteen, and I was sitting in church at youth convention, fairly close to the front of the church in the middle, and a family who I had not known a whole lot had shown up a bit late, and there was really no other seats in this large church because of the convention. So they ended up coming in and sitting next to me. And their son, who sat right next to me, I didn't care for initially. It is something that I kind of met him probably about 8 or 10 months earlier, and he seemed quite conceited, and that was a turn-off to me. So anyways, there is this dinner that's at the youth convention, and you can have a date, and that was something that was actually quite rare for this type of a church. You know, we had a 6-inch rule and all those types of things. So anyways, I had someone else in mind actually, and that person hadn't asked me yet, but I'd heard that they were going to. So anyways, we're sitting in church, and I start feeling this really odd sensation, and I was like, what is this? What is this weird feeling I'm feeling? And I sitting there thinking to myself, what could this possibly be? The best way I can describe it is a feeling of love. Okay, I'm in church. Is that God? It is, you know, and I'm not feeling like it's God. And I'm like, well, what is this then? And I felt like it was such a deep love and care, and I was like, wow, like this is, it's like almost palpable. Like it was unbelievable. I had never experienced anything like this. And I'm asking myself, well, how do I know what I'm feeling? Like how do I know this even exists? You know, I'm talking to myself in my own head, sitting there in the middle of church. And what came to me was that it was like energy. And I'm like, okay, so I'm feeling this energy love. You know, how do I know this? Like how again, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm thinking, well, what is the best way I can describe how I'm understanding this, how I'm knowing this? And I'm like, it's a knowing. The best way I can describe it, it's a knowing. So I'm like, okay, it's a knowing, it's an energy, it's definitely of love. And I'm like, you know, again, where's the source of it coming from? And I could sense as it was going along that it was somewhat coming from my right side. And so I'm thinking, is this coming from the person beside me? Like, no, this person doesn't, you know, love me. Like, this is weird. And then I had a vision, and the vision was me walking out of the church doors and being asked to go to this dinner with him as his date. And I was like, I just had this feeling, I had this visual, and I was just still so tripped out. I'm like, what is going on? You know, the whole service is going on, people are singing, and you know, the pastor's preaching everything, and I'm literally sitting with this for the rest of the service, thinking, this is so weird. And then I couldn't even talk to anyone, of course, beside me. I had a friend beside me, and at the end of the service, I'm just like, okay, you know, this is odd. And I started to ask myself, well, what do I say if he does ask me? And I was like, well, I don't really know, you know. And so anyways, everybody kind of congregates, you know, and chats and stuff like that after the service. And, you know, slowly we all, you know, head out of the church. And as I'm approaching the doors, I'm thinking, this is a little weird, we'll see. Step out of the doors. And I take a couple steps and I'm thinking, okay. And his little brother yells up the stairs at me and says, hey, Christina, you know, my brother wants to take you to the dinner. So it wasn't actually Mark who asked me. It was his little brother. I remember feeling flushed and shocked, and there was a bunch of people around, and I'm like, the answer just came to me. Okay, sure. And so it was really odd to me after I did talk to my friends after that and let them know what had transpired during the service. And they're like, oh, wow, that's weird or whatever. And then we went on this date. We started dating. He has a beautiful family, and he was a great boyfriend. And we dated for 8 months until I ended up having to move away. So anyways, he and his family were there during a really important time in my life. I was living with my mom at the time, and she wasn't doing well again. So I tried to give her another chance to live with and such, and it wasn't so good. So he and his family I was with quite often, and I can't help but feel like all of that happened for a reason. I was meant to feel that. I was meant to have that vision. I was meant to have my mind changed to a direction of this person and his family. I'm still, you know, in contact with them till this day, and I absolutely appreciate, you know, my time with them. And so that was my first psychic experience. I have had others. Another one I had just a few years ago, not too long after my awakening had started. I was meditating, and I had just kind of had this feeling something has happened. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, well, happened to who? I'm asking myself in meditation. And you know, I kind of do a light scan of, you know, the people I know or whatever, and my dad popped out. And I was like, okay. I'm like, so something's happened to my dad. Like, is he okay? You know, is he gonna be okay, or is it serious? And I feel like, no, it's okay. He's hurt, but he's okay. And so I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's interesting. So finished the meditation. Shortly after that, it was kind of hard to focus after receiving information like that, of course. And I'm like, you know, well, I basically new to all this, take it with a grain of salt and see what happens. Well, I didn't talk to my dad that day, and I think it was the following day or the day after he had called, and he had said, you know, oh yeah, everything's going blah blah. And I said, fine, how are you? And he's like, well, you know, I kind of had a bit of a boating accident. You know, I was out on the dinghy boat, and something, I think they had gone from their sailboat to the beach to go in and have some dinner, and they were going back, and it was a bit dark now, and something had happened where they had fallen out of the dinghy boat, and it's dark and the engine was still on, so he got himself cut up a bit and had to try to get the boat back and turn the engine off and then get back in and head to the sailboat. So I was just like, wow, you know, like that's, I'm so glad you're okay and everything and such. And it was, you know, a couple minutes later that I had then, it had dawned on me that, hey, I had meditated and felt, you know, that something had happened, and that you were hurt, but you're okay. And I was like, that's so weird, you know. And so something that I've learned is to trust that inner knowing feeling and to not dismiss it. There are many things in life that I feel are little clues or tidbits that are important to pay attention to. Another thing that fuels a lot of people's awakenings is seeing synchronicities with numbers and things like that. So, and that definitely happens to me as well. So psychic abilities can be different for everyone, and what people who are very well attuned to this say that we all have these abilities. It's just a matter of tuning into it and practicing. And my experiences so far were completely organic, and it just happened to me more or less. And to me, especially my one happening in church, my first one happening in church, I had to question myself, and the beliefs with the church that, psychic stuff is frowned upon, it's of the devil, it's, those kinds of things, because I felt, why would that happen to me at such a young age of 13, 14, still so innocent, and for it to actually be something that made a positive impact on my life. I, have come to the understanding that we have our own internal guidance system, and that's an important thing to listen to. So if you get any little tidbits of information, or a sensation, or a feeling, or a knowing, or you sense energy, another time, actually, I remember really sensing powerful energy was when we had our summer solstice. I was heading back from work and driving, and I just started to feel not well. And I was like, wow, and I had to go back to work in a couple hours. And I was just thinking, maybe it's not even safe for me to drive. Like, it was a lightheaded type feeling. Little bit of nausea and stuff too. And so when I went home, I went to rest a bit. And then I heard from my boss that I didn't need to go back to work, which was a blessing because I wasn't feeling up for it anyways. And so that was another situation for me where something just happened, and then I realized that it was the summer solstice. It was the 21st of June. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was so affected by some of that. I don't recall ever being affected like that previously. And so I mental note, this is something I need to pay attention to. And how beautiful that, if it's going to affect me the way it was, that it worked out with the universe, that, I didn't have to work in the evening, and I didn't, nor could I with a feeling of not feeling safe enough to drive. So I absolutely believe in energy. I absolutely believe in intuition. Especially for me, the knowing field is what I feel works for me. And so I hope you all learn to trust that yourselves. And I'm still completely on my journey and learning so much, and trying to embody so much of it as well. And so I want to share my journey with you, and hope that anything that I learn along the way can help you as well. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.